I guess we finally got our answer to whether Julio Jones was going to be traded somewhere or not. This has been talked about and bandied about kind of in the build-up to the draft, at the draft, and then obviously after the draft about Julio Jones being on the market, the Atlanta Falcons potentially wanting to part with him, and then as time went along, starting to see and hear more and more about Julio Jones wanting out of Atlanta. And you probably got the idea, if you didn't have it before, that he truly wanted out when he answered the call from Shannon Sharpe when they were on air, knowing goddamn good and well he knew what Shannon Sharpe was doing. It was all planned, it was all staged, and it was all done for a reason. For whatever reason, apparently Julio did want out of Atlanta, and the Atlanta Falcons have complied with his request, and they have traded him to the Tennessee Titans. Bit of a surprise, but maybe not. Julio Jones, now a Tennessee Titan. The Falcons receiving a second-round pick in 2022 and a fourth-round pick in 2023, sending a sixth-round pick to the Titans as part of the deal. Wow. So yeah, this is a thing. And this happened. And I look at this deal both from the Titans standpoint and the Falcons standpoint. I'll start off with the Titans. You know, Julio Jones is on the wrong side of 30. Julio Jones has played in the league a decade now. Julio Jones is still one of the very best receivers in the game. The Titans had the chance to add an elite player to their offense without having to give up a first-round pick. 100 out of 100 times, if your organization is in the spot that the Titans are and has the chance to make this deal, you absolutely effing must make this deal. If I were a Titans fan right now, I'd be pleased as punch with this deal. I'd be excited about it. You're telling me that I didn't have to give up any picks in this past draft in order to get a guy that's still an elite wide receiver? You're telling me that even the picks I gave up, it's a second and fourth round pick? It's 100% totally and completely worth it with absolutely no regrets about it at all. Now you could always say that, hey, and make this trade for him and then it doesn't work out and then what the hell do you do? What did you really give up though? You gave up a second round pick next year and a fourth round pick the year after. You have to make this deal. You have no choice. And you look at this now from a Titan standpoint, what does this mean for them? This means a chance to give even more help to Ryan Tannehill, but perhaps even more importantly for the Titans offense, it means that you take some of the load and some of the pressure off of Derrick Henry. You know, obviously Henry's had a run here the past couple of years that's been absolutely phenomenal. But now you've added another element to your passing game, and a big-time element at that, at Julio Jones. He's going to make Ryan Tannehill better. He's going to make A.J. Brown better. A.J. Brown already a stud. Now it could potentially be even easier for him. You're going to make Derrick Henry not necessarily better, but you're going to make it easier for him. So you could pick and choose your spots better with him and not run him into the effing ground. Like, I understand Julio Jones can't play defense, and the Titans, you could say, definitely needed a lot of help on defense, but damn it all. Like, fuck the future. If you're the Titans, the future is now. You got to go after this. You're talking about a Titans team that lacked the offensive punch to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game in the 2019 season, and then they turned around this past season and lost to Baltimore in the freaking wild card round. They needed more firepower and more explosiveness and more punch in their offense. And with Julio Jones, they absolutely got it. They could absorb the contract. It was absolutely 100% a deal that you got to make. Frankly, I'm surprised a team like Indianapolis didn't come calling. You made the deal for Carson Wentz. You might as well go even more in to try and help him and bring in a guy like this. I'm stunned the San Francisco 49ers didn't come calling. If you're going to say, well, they didn't have a lot of picks. Well, fuck it at this point. You got to go for it. And especially if you want Trey Lance to develop into that dude, you got to think being able to work a few years with Julio Jones in the passing game is going to help him exponentially. Once you see that a first-round pick wasn't involved. You wonder why these other teams didn't step up and potentially even sweeten the pot, say a second-rounder this year coming up and a third-rounder in 2023, or saying it's a second-rounder this year, a fourth-rounder next year, and you don't want to pick back from Atlanta. Like, I'm really surprised, and as much as I'm going to shit on the Falcons here in a moment as being somewhat losers on this deal, I feel like other teams that could have used this dude, that could have used another weapon, I could throw the Bills out there, like the Ravens, like where the fuck were they in all of this? Like for the Titans to get this, it doesn't make them a Super Bowl team, but it sure as fuck doesn't hurt. And as far as the Falcons go, now maybe you were at a point where there was no reconciling. Maybe you were at a point where Julio, after 10 seasons, was like, I'm out. I want a fresh start. I don't agree with where the direction the organization is going, or I feel like my time is short and I want to have another chance to win a championship since the last time didn't go so well. I get that, maybe. Still wonder if that's really the reason, if there's other things at play. I mean, just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure. I find it interesting that he was eager to get out of a situation where the head coach that's coming in was the offensive coordinator for the Titans. That's weird. It's also weird to me that he would want to leave from playing around Matt Ryan. He's played with Matt Ryan for a decade. Matt Ryan is a better NFL quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. That's not a slight on Tannehill. That's just a fact. That's just a reality. You know what I mean? Like, shit. Tannehill's good. Matt Ryan can be great. And especially when you're talking about a team that brings in a new coach that brought in Kyle Pitts as well, you're wondering, hey, can they really stop anybody? But how many people can the Titans really stop defensively? It's really interesting to me for Julio's standpoint that he wants to go to a contender, and the Titans was the team that he chose ultimately. But for the Falcons, like if you say, okay, this was going to happen no matter what, and they had to make the best out of the situation they possibly can, and especially once he was on air saying that he wanted out, it hurt some of the leverage that they could exercise. I get that. And sometimes you reach a point where you have to jump off, you have to chalk it up as an L, and you sit there and do what you can. And you could say getting a first-round pick for a 30-plus-year-old receiver on that massive contract was going to be unrealistic. They got something of substance back from Julio. It was about the best they could do. I don't fundamentally disagree with that. But here's what I don't understand. This feels like the epitome of lateral move. You draft a Kyle Pitts, not to play with Julio Jones to improve your offense, but at most, you hope, be able to replace Julio Jones. It doesn't really feel like a wise thing to do. Furthermore, my real knock about this, though, is outside of the Falcons being a team that's supposed to be winning now, and you say, why is that? Because they didn't draft a fucking quarterback this year when they could have done so. Justin Fields, Mac Jones were both there. If they really liked one of those guys, and I'm sure they liked one of them enough to where they would have considered pulling the trigger at 4 or even a small trade back to still take one of them, the reality is they didn't take one. Therefore, that means you're trying to win now with Matt Ryan. Please tell me how the fuck trading Julio Jones makes you a better team now. And don't give me that salary cap excuse, that salary cap bullshit. We've seen now just how fugazi fucking fake that is. I'm not buying that bullshit for a second. Neither should you. How are you in a win now mode and you trade away a Hall of Fame wide receiver who still probably has a couple of years of high-level play left in him? It doesn't make any sense. But even more so than that, my criticism for Atlanta here comes to the fact of, you made this deal. Why in the fuck didn't you get this done before the draft? So that way you could have gotten a second-round pick this year and the fourth-round pick next year, so potentially could have used that additional second-round pick now to either improve the defense or give you more depth at wide receiver behind Calvin Ridley and maybe Kyle Pitts. Like, are you going to play Pitts at wide receiver now instead of tight end? What are you going to do here? Like, it doesn't feel like, I mean, what, Russell Gage is going to step up and he's going to be the dude that takes over Julio's spot? It doesn't feel like there was a whole lot of pre-planning or preparing for this potential possibility, contingency, and I guess likelihood. Like, why make this trade and not get yourself a commodity that could potentially help you to improve this year when you are supposed to be allegedly in win now mode. This just really doesn't make any sense. For the Titans, you absolutely have to do this deal 100 out of 100 times. Period. If you're the Falcons, I guess you had no choice where you had to do it. You got backed into a corner, maybe backed yourself up into a corner. But I just really question the strategy and the thought process and the logic for the Falcons organization, because it just feels like this could have been handled a lot differently, a lot better, and in a lot more productive fashion than what they ultimately ended up having do.